Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharne Nirvishesha Srinivadi Pasikatyade Satarne. Today we're going to read from the Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 4, Transcendental Knowledge, text number 11. Beginning with Ye Tamam Rapadante Tam Satava Pajamyam Mama Vartmudu Vartante Manushapartha Sarvashaha. As all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respects, O son of Pritha. Prabhu's purport. Everyone is searching for Krishna in the different aspects of his manifestations. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is partially realized in his impersonal Brahmajyoti effulgence and as the all-pervading Supersoul dwelling within everything, including the particles of atoms. But Krishna is fully realized only by his pure devotees. Consequently, Krishna is the object of everyone's realization. Thus, anyone and everyone is satisfied according to one's desire to have him. In the transcendental world also, Krishna reciprocates with his pure devotees in the transcendental atmosphere, or the transcendental attitude, just as the devotee wants him. One devotee may want Krishna as the Supreme Master, another as his personal friend, another as his son, and still others as his lover. Krishna rewards all the devotees equally, according to their different intensities of love for him. In the material world, the same reciprocations of feelings are there, and they're equally exchanged by the Lord with the different types of worshipers. The pure devotees, both here and in the transcendental abode, associate with him in person. They're able to render personal service to the Lord and thus derive transcendental bliss in his loving service. As for those who are impersonalists and who want to commit spiritual suicide by annihilating the individual existence of the living entity, Krishna helps them also by absorbing them into his effulgence. Such impersonalists do not agree to accept the eternal, blissful personality of Godhead. Consequently, they cannot relish the bliss of transcendental personal service to the Lord, having extinguished their individuality. Some of them, who are not firmly situated even in the impersonal existence, return to this material field to exhibit their dormant desires for activities. They are not admitted into the spiritual planets, but they are again given a chance to act on the material planets. For those who are fruitive workers, the Lord awards the desired result of their prescribed duties as the Yageshvara, and those who are yogis seeking mystic powers are awarded such powers. In other words, everyone is dependent for success upon his mercy alone. And all kinds of spiritual processes are different degrees of success on the same path. Unless, therefore, one comes to the highest perfection of Krishna consciousness, all attempts remain imperfect. As stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam, akama sarvakarma va moksha kama udaradi tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham para. Whether one is without desire, the condition of the devotees, or is desirous of all fruitive results, or is after liberation, one should with all efforts try to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead for complete perfection, culminating in Krishna consciousness. So the text again. Ye tamam prapadante tam sataiva vajamyaham mama vartmanu vartante manusha partha sarvashaha. As all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respects. Asana Prata. Namo Vishnu Vadaya Krishna Prastagute, Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane, Namaste Saraswati Deve, Gauravani Bracharane, Nirvishesha, Srinivadi, Paskadyade Satarne. When Srila Prabhupada was visiting Moscow, he met with one professor there. His name was Professor Kataski. And Professor Kataski did not accept Srila Prabhupada's philosophy. He could not even accept the fact that we're not this body, but to speak of anything else in the philosophy. When Prabhupada tried to explain to him about the fact that there are different types of people in the material world, some people have a higher consciousness and some people have a lower consciousness, Professor Kataski still refused to accept that idea. So then finally Prabhupada said that our philosophy is that everyone has to follow a leader. Whether you follow Lenin, or you follow Hitler, everyone has to follow a leader. Our philosophy is that Krishna is our leader, and you have your leader, Lenin. But still you have to follow a leader. So that's a universal philosophy, that everyone, whatever they're doing, they're ultimately following some leader. Now, we may not remember who the leader is. We may have forgotten that the way I dress, what I eat, the way I speak, even what I'm thinking, is more or less as a result of following some kind of leader. Generally speaking, for instance, when we recite the 10 offenses against the holy names, the second offense is to consider the names of the demigods, like Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, to be equal to or independent of the holy name of Lord Vishnu. Now, that's not a problem for most of us, because we don't believe in Brahma. We don't believe in Shiva. And we hardly believe in Vishnu. So who's the best out of any? If they say that Vishnu is the best, it's all right. We have no problem with that, because we don't believe in any of them. Now, it is not because we don't believe in Brahma or Shiva or even Vishnu, Lord Vishnu, that we don't have a leader. Sometimes we see the devotees, they have headphones on and they're listening to music. And we might assume they're listening to devotional music. But sometimes if you're talking to them and they take their headphones off, you can hear the songs of Mick Jagger and the Rolling Stones or the Beatles. Because it's hard for them to give up their leader. So similarly, everyone in the material world has some leader, whether it be a rock star, a musician, a movie star, or some sports hero. Nowadays, young people, you can see them sometimes, some movie comes out like Spider-Man, and not only they go to the movie and watch Spider-Man, but they're also dressed like a spider. And because they're following such a leader, it's assumed that in the future, they might even become a spider. Why bother dressing like a spider when you could actually be a spider? Therefore, Prabhupada said, if we want to find Narada Muni, the best thing to do is to find out where his footprints are, and then we follow those footprints, and eventually we'll get to Narada Muni. Of course, nowadays, people have so many leaders. One moment they're following one politician, hoping that they get elected. The next moment they're listening to some music and they think this is the most fantastic thing I've ever heard. And the next moment they're playing some sport in imitation of their acharya in that particular sport. Because they learn either, as Prahlad Maharaj said, that Vitirna Krishna Parataksatova Vitobi Padyeta Grihavratanam Adanta Gobir Vishatam Tamizram Punak Punas Charuta Charunano. That everyone is trying to fix their consciousness with the hope that where we put our consciousness, we're going to get happiness. And indeed, everyone, whatever they're doing, they're doing that in the hope of either avoiding distress or in the hope of getting happiness. And they've learned from their previous authority, teacher, leader, how to do that particular activity so that you can avoid distress to the maximum and you can get the maximum amount of happiness from it. So material means consciousness. Now, most people don't know that Krishna is the ultimate leader and that his activities are to give the ultimate happiness. In the spiritual world, the followers of Krishna, for instance, if you see the pictures in the Krishna book or other books or the paintings we have, for instance, there's one picture of Krishna with Balaram and they're running through the forest on the banks of the Jamuna, and Krishna is ecstatic and Balaram is ecstatic and the calf that's with them is ecstatic, and all the cowherd boys who are following Krishna and Balaram, they're also ecstatic. It's not that the cowherd boys are all morose, or that Krishna is forcing them to play with him, or else they'll get punished. Or we don't see a cowherd boy tripping and breaking his leg, running through the forest. No, they're all ecstatic, very enthusiastic to follow Krishna, because as they follow Krishna, the intensity of their love for Krishna, their intensity of the love for all living entity, all the cowherd boys and the calves and everyone else intensifies and brings more and more pleasure. So Krishna's pastimes are all for happiness. But as it explains here, that Krishna is very kind. And therefore, because Krishna has different energies, he gives the living entities the opportunity to live in any one of those energies and try to find happiness there. As Prabhupada mentions in this purport, Vidanti tat vidas tat vyaj jnanam advayam rameti paramatmeti bhagavan iti shabdite. Principally speaking, Krishna has three energies. The internal energy, where Krishna is personally taking part in the pastimes with his devotees, which are all meant to produce rasa, or transcendental happiness, in loving exchanges between Krishna and his devotees. And then we have the material energy, which is the other energy, what Krishna says, Daivi Yesha Gunamayi Mamamaya Dharatya. He said, it's my energy, but it's my external energy. And there the living entities are struggling. Mamaya Vangso Jivaloke Jiva Bhutak Sanatanam. When the soul enters into the material nature, he's given a body made of the 5 gross and 3 subtle elements, and then he struggles to maintain it, trying to get some happiness by satisfying the senses and try to avoid the unhappiness of having to leave our body. So everyone in the material world is struggling with this body in the hope that somehow or another, during our struggle, we're actually going to find some happiness, some, as Prabhupada said, some friendship, society, and love. And according to our understanding of how to live in material nature, because material nature also has variety. Sattvam, Rajas, Tama, Iti, Guna, Prakriti, Sambhava. That the material nature consists of three modes: goodness, passion, ignorance. So in goodness, we're relatively peaceful. We get pleasure from the sun, from fresh air, from nice food, from a peaceful life. We're not running after so many different material arrangements. We're satisfied with whatever is provided. But in the mode of passion, of which modern society is very well advanced, there's this idea that actually we're incomplete, that something I'm missing, because everyone knows they're missing something, namely happiness, and knowledge of how to get that happiness, and how to feel secure and peaceful while one is enjoying that happiness. So everyone knows they're missing that, and modern society promising that if you buy this product or go to this place or establish this relationship, or if you get this amount of money or resources, then you'll actually find happiness. Exactly the same thing as the donkey or the ass. As we've heard before, the ass carries a lot of laundry for the washerman. And therefore they attach a very heavy load on the back of the ass. But in order to get the ass to move, the washerman attaches to the head of the ass a carrot, which the ass can see, which is only a few inches in front of him. So the ass is convinced that this carrot is so close that if I simply take one step, I'll get the carrot. So in order to get that carrot, he takes a step, in spite of the fact he's carrying a very heavy load on his back. And of course, he doesn't get the carrot because he takes one step forward and the carrot also advances one step. So the ass assumes that he just miscalculated where the carrot was and that he actually needed two steps. So he takes one more step and the carrot advances one step and he pulls his heavy load and still he doesn't get the carrot. So this goes on all day long. And because the ass doesn't have a very big brain, therefore he can't remember that he's already taken 20,000 steps and still has not gotten the carrot. He still believes that only one more step will get him the carrot. So that's the mode of passion. One more step and the carrot's there. Then I'll find my happiness and peace and my supreme destination. And in the mode of ignorance, one couldn't care less. That whatever one could feed the stomach, whatever can put into the stomach, whatever is around for sense gratification, it's good enough. One is too lazy to do anything. One simply grabs whatever is around to eat and hopes that it'll taste good, that's all. Whereas Manidhara Prabhu, who booked the Shura in Germany, used to say that when he was on the street, he'd offer people books, Prabhupada's books, and people would take the book in their hands and they look at the book. They generally didn't read anything, but if the book reminded them of something that they ate, sometimes they'd buy it. If it was brown and it reminded them of chocolate, then they think, well, this book may taste good. They were not interested in the philosophy within the book or any philosophy. Their philosophy is, if it tastes good, then you buy it. So some people would buy the book simply because it reminded them of chocolate or maybe vanilla, depending upon their taste. So that's called the mode of ignorance. So these are Krishna's energies, and there are always persons who exemplify those energies, who become the leader. There are many people, as Krishna says, that those who are, when Arjuna was asking Krishna, what about people who have faith? Do they actually obtain the supreme destination? So Krishna tells Arjuna that there are three kinds of faith. Sadvanurupa sarvasha shadad bhavati bharata sharoma yo purusham yo yatschara saeva saha. That according to one's existence under the three modes, one has a particular kind of faith. So everyone is existing under the three modes in the material world, and everyone has a particular idea about what is reality. That means they have a certain idea under the modes of what will make them happy. And when they act according to that idea, then if that action was in the mode of ignorance, then they further advance in the mode of ignorance. If their action is in the mode of passion, then they further advance in the mode of passion. And if their action was in the mode of goodness, then they further advance in goodness. Or if they were in goodness, but they act in passion, then they go down into passion. Or if they're in passion and they act in ignorance, then they go into ignorance. Like, for instance, you may have some friends, and you may be in goodness or in passion, but they're in ignorance. Somehow or another, you get attracted to some people who are in ignorance, and they tell you, I dare you to do this. I dare you to go up to this building and jump off the building. But don't worry, you'll have a rope. We'll put a rope on you. Or you can pay 50 euros and they'll call bungee jumping. And you can go up to the building and they'll throw you off the building, but the rope will stop you from crashing on the ground. So your friends may challenge you. You may have no inclination to jump off a building. Most sane people don't have that inclination. But you may think, well, they're challenging me, they're my friends, I have to act like I'm their friend, so I'm obliged to do it. So then you jump off the building, and you pay money to jump off the building. And it may not be the most pleasant experience. Just like most people, when they take alcohol for the first time, it doesn't taste very good because it doesn't really have a very good taste. But after some time, they get adjusted to it. Just like smoking a cigarette. You may smoke a cigarette, and what is this cigarette? Unless you're a dragon, then a dragon may appreciate smoking fire, breathing in fire, and breathing out fire. But most of us are not dragons. So this idea of breathing in smoke or fire and breathing it out is not a very pleasant experience at first. But then when people get used to it, due to the fact that it contains certain drugs that makes one addicted to that particular experience, one actually thinks it's a positive experience and that one needs that experience in order to feel happy and peaceful. So that means one has gone from maybe goodness to passion or to ignorance. There it says the mind is generally in the mode of goodness, but by bad association with those in the mode of ignorance and passion, then one winds up in those modes of material nature also. So everything depends upon association. Purusha prakriti stohi punkte prakriti janguna karna guna sangosya sad asad yoni janmasu. That the living entities follow the ways of life, trying to enjoy the material nature, the modes of nature. This is due to the conditioning of those three modes, and thus they meet with both good and evil amongst the various species. Therefore, we have to be careful, especially who we choose as a leader. Now, how do we know who we choose as a leader? If you want to know who you're choosing as a leader or who we're choosing as a leader, just write down what you're doing. And then find out who you know who's more expert at what you're doing than you are. And that's your leader. If you're trying to play rock music, write that down. We may even be unconscious of most of the things we're doing. Write it down and then think, who is my favorite rock musician? And that's my leader. I never gave it up. I'm playing this instrument, singing my favorite rock song, and feeling separation from my leader. In the mood of Prahladananda Seva, I'm carrying out, I'm following in the parampara coming from this leader. I may be a good disciple of that leader. I may be a poor disciple, but I'm a faithful disciple at least. So Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Sarva Dharma Prityaja Mamekam Sharanam Vraja. Krishna says, give up all varieties of religion. So as we know, people have no problem with that. That's one instruction in Bhagavad Gita that practically everyone in the material world is following. Practically everyone has given up all varieties of religion. It's the second half of the verse that causes some difficulty to people, where Krishna says, and surrender to me. So Krishna wants everyone to surrender to him. It's not that Krishna, he's some control freak, although he has unlimited servants in the spiritual world, but he's looking in the material world. He comes here quite often and he sees all these people not listening to him and he becomes very upset. Why are they not listening to me? I'm God. This is an insult. I feel depressed. So many people are not listening to me. I'm going to force them to listen to me. No, Krishna is happy. He's only unhappy to see others unhappy. As Prahlad Maharaj told Lord Nrsingadev, when Lord Nrsingadev was offering Prahlad Maharaj a benediction. So Prahlad Maharaj said, I don't actually need benedictions. Now, whom amongst us, if God personally came to us and said, my dear devotee, I'd like to give you a benediction. I mean, which one of us would say, oh, no, I don't really need anything. Oh, by the way, Lord Nrsingadev, there's a new iPhone that just came out. I don't want to bother you, but it would be nice, I mean, it's my birthday pretty soon. I do accept presents once in a while. So Prahlad Maharaj said, actually, I don't need anything. Naiva dvije paradaratya vaitaranya swavirya gaina mahamrita magnichita. Prahlad Maharaj said, actually, whenever I chant about your glories, I actually remember you. Not only you, but I remember your friends, what they look like, what their good qualities are, what their activities are. I mean, I'm actually there experiencing these things. I'm in that spiritual energy with all the happiness and consciousness, and I'm completely overwhelmed with love and pleasure. There's nothing better than that. So what do I need? I don't want anything else, because why would a fish who's in the water, if he's offered a car on the land and a nice house on the land, why would he jump out of the water onto the dry land and die? So Prahlad Maharaj said, I'm in the spiritual energy already. There's nothing higher than that. So why would I go anywhere? Why do I want anything? It's just a burden. But Lord Nrsingadev said, but Prahlad Maharaj, you're claiming you're so happy just by glorifying me, but I see you look morose, actually. I mean, I want to be honest with you because, I'm God and I should tell you what the truth is. So Prahlad Maharaj said, well, actually, I may look unhappy, but it's not because I'm unhappy. Myself personally, I'm just full of transcendental happiness by serving you and remembering you and participating in your pastimes. But I'm unhappy to see these fools and rascals who are trying to be happy and have created a society so-called meant for so-called happiness, but they're actually, as Prahlad Maharaj says, they're vimudhas. I talked about the ass who's pulling the heavy weight of laundry to get the carrot. But Prahlad Maharaj says these people are not just mudhas or asses. They're vimudhas. They're super asses. Because they're working so hard, they're not even satisfied with pulling a heavy burden of laundry on their back. They want more laundry on their back. They want more struggle, and they think they're gaining something by struggling harder to get ever less. So they're super fools. They're not ordinary fools. They're super duper fools. And therefore, I'm making plans to tell them about you so that they could actually find real happiness and go back to the spiritual world where they actually belong, not this world of birth and death. Therefore, when Krishna tells the souls to follow him in his joyful pastimes in Vrindavan, where everyone is happy all the time, and Krishna is happy to see everyone else happy, and everyone else is happy to see everyone else happy and Krishna happy. So Krishna says, give up all this nonsense that is actually making you unhappy and surrender to me. Unfortunately, people don't know who Krishna is. Tevidu Swartagatim Hi Vishnu. They don't know that the place of happiness is to follow Krishna. And therefore they invented so many other things that are actually causing them unhappiness. Rashya ye bahir artamanina. And why are they accepting these things? Because they don't know who the real leader is. They don't know what the real goal is and who's actually going towards that goal. Andaya tandir upagiyamanaste pisha tantra urudami vada. They're blind and they're following a blind leader. Now everyone takes birth in ignorance. Everyone is blind by birth. If we're fortunate enough to come in contact with an actual leader or one who can tell us who the real leader is, and if we follow that leader's instructions and example, then we might get a little experience of Krishna consciousness, which may inspire us to further go and follow that leader or leaders who are bringing us to Krishna. Otherwise, as it says in the Mahabharata, Tarko apratishtam shutiya vibhina yasavarishir yasyanadinam dharmasya tattvam itam guhayam mahajano yena kata sapanta. Everyone is arguing about who's good and who's bad. What's the right path and what's the wrong path? People go on all day arguing about these things. They have no experience. Just like one time, one person after class asked Prabhupada, can you tell me about Buddhism? So Prabhupada's answer was, can you tell me what do you know about Buddhism? Actually, he was asking, what is the difference between Buddhism and Krishna consciousness? So Prabhupada asked this guest, he said, can you tell me what Buddhism is? So the man says, no, I have no idea what Buddhism is. So Prabhupada said, you're asking me to compare Buddhism with Krishna consciousness. You don't know either Buddhism, you don't know Krishna consciousness, and you want me to compare them for you. He said, well, why don't you do something? If you want to know what Buddhism is, why don't you follow Buddhism, and then you'll find out what it is. Why just talk? Do something. So people don't know what they're talking about. And they're on the mental platform where they're just arguing about something they have no idea about. As a matter of fact, nowadays, if you get into an argument with people, then at the beginning they argue one way with great enthusiasm, and then they forget what their argument was in that subject, and they may even change their argument to something completely different and argue on the other side with the same enthusiasm. To change their minds is not a big change, because their mind is always changing. So tarka apratishta, people, dry arguments based upon no experience, it's very unsteady. You can say anything. Well, Prabhupada said that in Bengali there's a saying that just like a goat can eat anything, so a madman can say anything. So people don't even know what they're saying most of the time. Or as Prabhupada also said, that everyone is ghostly haunted. Our minds are like ghosts, just haunting us, telling us things all the time. The ghost is going, whoo. And the person who is haunted by the ghost is going, oh my God, it's a ghost. It's haunting me. Woo. Ah. So we're all following our minds around, being haunted by our ghostly, haunted mind, saying all kinds of nonsense, whatever comes to our mind. We don't even know what we're saying half the time, what it means. And therefore, we never come to any conclusion. At the end of 5 hours of argument, we know less than when we began. It is not that argument is wrong if it's based upon scripture. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it says that one can discuss things in terms of scripture, and that will make the mind stronger. But if it's not based on scripture, nor is it based upon even experience, it's just based upon what we heard from others who know nothing, then there's no conclusion. Who's good, who's bad? It's called manodharma. It's all a mental concoction, because there's nothing good in the material world. Because the very material world for the soul is bad. Good for the soul is when he's blissful and realizes he's eternal, when he actually has the knowledge of how to act in the eternal nature and become blissful. That's good. And everything else is bad. As I just gave the example before, that if the fish is on the water, he's very happy. He may not have his PhD degree. He may not have a palace to live in. His wife may not look like, Marilyn Monroe, but he's happy. But if you put him on land and you give him a degree and a good job and a most beautiful wife in the estimation of most people of this world, in spite of the fact that he has all material comforts and facility, he won't be satisfied because he's not in his real environment. So to argue about what's good in this material world and what's bad is a waste of time, because it's all bad for the soul. He needs to be in the spiritual world. Shrutiya vibhina. And even if I'll argue on the basis of scripture, but if we're not following the scripture, then it's also a waste of time. Because we won't have any realization, as I was saying, that experience doesn't come from just theoretical knowledge. experience, which we're looking for, the taste of happiness and love and bliss, security, it comes from experience. And knowledge may be the beginning of that experience because we need something theoretically to act on. But the knowledge will only be experienced when it actually comes to the platform of perception, perspective. Only when we see what we're talking about can we work on, can we act according to it. If we talk about building a spaceship to go to the moon, and we talk about it all day long, we'll still be on this planet. Now we study and we find out what is the process of building such a spaceship, then at least we start working on something. At least we have some theoretical knowledge that such and such is the way of building a vimana and going to the moon or whatever else. Maybe going to Hawaii with the vimana, wherever we want to go. So at least we're working on something. So we have some perspective on what is being said and how to apply it practically. But if we build something for our whole life and we get into it, finally we think it's time to take off, and we get into it and it explodes, we won't be very convinced that I spend my time very wisely. Just like there's one group of meditation, if you spend probably 20,000 euros nowadays or dollars, they teach you how to levitate. Cheap. So you sit there and you practice and they give you the instructions. And after some years of practicing, you're able to what is that called? Not you don't jump up and down, but you bop up and down. You're sitting in the lotus flower and you just kind of like, you're not jumping, but you're bopping up and down. So you're able to get up 1 or 2 inches off you're behind off 1 or 2 inches off the ground. And you think, now I'm levitating. Of course, you fall back on the earth again. But you've accomplished something, but not very much. But it actually worked to the smallest degree possible. You got some perspective on it. But your conviction is such that this was not worth the while. It wasn't actually what I was looking for. I'm not flying to Los Angeles, my vimana, or by my levitation. But if one is able to actually do something, following the mystic yoga process, build a spaceship, or just build an airplane, and it takes off, then you get conviction that the knowledge you have is actually true. It actually worked. And you knew how to actually apply it properly so that you actually accomplish something. So you get conviction. And then from that conviction, you may refine the product. Like in the beginning, the Wright brothers, they had a biplane or whatever it was, and they get off the ground for 20 seconds or 20 minutes. And now they have, much more sophisticated planes that fly around the world. So then you develop skill. And ultimately, when everything becomes spontaneous and one not only has knowledge, perspective, conviction, skill, but everything is just understood and accepted, and one acts spontaneously and naturally in that particular situation, that's called character. So most people are trying to follow some leader, and ultimately, what they want is something practical. They want some experience. Therefore, it says, Dharmasya tattvam nihitam guhayam. Hidden in the heart of a self-realized person is that knowledge. And therefore, because people want something practical, they're going to choose something that they can actually, according to their mode of nature, actually acquire from that person, from following that person. So those in the mode of ignorance, they choose a leader like Hiranyakashipu, Kamsa, or so many other persons we can mention. And they follow them. Of course, they don't follow Hiranyakashipu by fasting or anything like that, but they follow them in their demoniac habits. As Prabhupada used to say, they choose Lord Shiva because they think if Lord Shiva swallowed an ocean of poison, so if Shiva is my hero, my leader, then the result is I can smoke ganja, I can smoke marijuana, because I'm following some poison. Very good. He's my hero. And I'm going to become Om Shivaya Namaha. I'm going to become Shiva eventually. Or as I was saying, I was in one Sunday feast with one lady, and she was glorifying Krishna, how wonderful Krishna was. And that she even had a deity of Krishna in her house. So I said, that's very nice, do you chant Hare Krishna? Are you following? But then she said, well, actually, I'm worshiping Krishna because I myself am Krishna. And eventually I'll actually become the deity and I'll be on my own altar. So everyone is choosing some leader with the idea that eventually they're going to become just like that leader. And maybe they'll be on the altar also, with Shiva and Ganesh, and maybe they are Durga. And this is called the mode of ignorance. People choose someone as their leader, and then they act in ignorance. You don't choose Hiranyakashipu as your leader, and you act as Prahlad Maharaj. So if someone like Hiranyakashipu becomes the leader, sorry for the noise there. If you choose one of the rock stars as your leader, you won't wind up as a saintly person like Prahlad Maharaj. And in the mode of passion, people choose some industrialist, some wealthy person as their leader, some famous athlete as their leader, someone who gets Nobel Prize as their leader. And they advance according to their ability and their determination, and they develop the same qualities as that leader that they're following. And the mode of goodness, someone chooses an environmentalist, a philosopher as their leader, and they develop the same mentality as that leader, and their activities are similar to that of the leader. They may not become as prominent as that leader is, because after all, in the Bhagavatam it says, Swavit Brahostra Karar, Samstuta Purusha Pashu, Yat Karna Patiyopeta, Jatu Nama Gadagraja. And men who are like hogs and dogs and camels and asses, they glorify the bigger hogs, dogs, camels, and asses, but they never glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead who's carrying a club. In other words, unless we become convinced that Krishna is actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he's leading us to land of bliss and pure consciousness of love and bliss, then because we've been trained up to follow so many other leaders, that's who we'll be following, consciously or unconsciously. And ultimately, we may not go to the same place as that leader. We're following Lenin. We may not go to Lenin wherever Lenin is, but we may go to some mixed place where someone is the hero there or the leader, and at the same time, we get the association of devotees. So we keep on practicing Krishna consciousness, trying to accept Krishna as our leader, that Krishna is actually the proprietor of everything, that everything is actually meant for Krishna's pleasure, and that when I love Krishna and I love his devotees, then my life will become successful, and that there's no other success in life. If I would love anything else, if I'm attracted to anything else, it won't actually help make my life successful. Therefore, when we hear about Krishna, we hear about his wonderful activities, especially in the association of devotees, then the result is that we may become inclined to accept Krishna as our leader, or accept those who have accepted Krishna as our leader. And if we follow them, for instance, Prahlad Maharaj said, to glorify Krishna. So if we glorify Krishna, that means we're accepting Prahlad as our leader, and we're glorifying Krishna, following the footsteps of Prahlad Maharaj and our acharyas in disciple succession by telling people about Krishna and hearing about Krishna ourselves. That means that we're accepting Krishna as our leader. And we try to understand what Krishna is saying. We take it seriously and try to see what the vision Krishna is trying to give us of this world and ourselves and himself. And we put it into practice with conviction. Then gradually, as we develop the skills of a pure devotee, then we'll develop the character of a pure devotee. We'll become like Prahlad Maharaj, we'll become like Srila Prabhupada, we'll become like Narada Muni, and therefore we'll actually become our real selves again. Because all of us, we're eternally like those personalities. We've just been covered over by this illusory energy because we followed persons who are covered by the illusory energy. But we can become uncovered, just like if you put the iron in the fire and take it out of the cold water, then the iron will become hotter and hotter and hotter, and eventually it'll become just like fire. Of course, if we take it out of the cold ice water and then put it into the fire, for a little while it'll become hotter. But then if we put it back into the ice water again, then it'll take a long time before it'll actually get heated in the fire. And we repeatedly put it in the fire and then take it out of the fire. Therefore, Krishna says, Mam chayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatityayitam brahma bhuyaya kalpate. That one who is engaged in devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the three modes of material nature and comes to the level of Brahman. And I am the basis of that impersonal Brahman, which is eternal, transcendental, and beyond any material experience. So the conclusion is we should hear from Krishna and we should try to follow and his devotees, try to take them as our leader, try to appreciate that Krishna is our friend. He's trying to lead us back to the eternal spiritual world where we can become eternally happy rather than struggling for existence here in this temporary miserable world. So I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions or comments?
Thank you very much, Guru Maharaj, for the beautiful class. According to my experience, I'm a witness that sincere devotees follow good leaders, but sometimes when we don't have 100% sincerity in our heart, we are more inclined to follow the flourished words or sometimes external doings of so-called leaders that are doing something that is indirectly related with Krishna conscious, but then in due course of time become a little bit deviant, and then these followers also become a little bit corrupted. So, of course, what will be the approach for that situation?
Well, Krishna consciousness is quite simple. We have the words in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which are non-different from the words of our acharyas. So the words of our acharyas can always be with us. So we judge things, we judge everyone according to Krishna's instructions. We don't judge Krishna's instructions according to everyone else's opinion. We judge everyone else's opinion according to Krishna's instructions. Therefore, we accept Prabhupada, for instance, as our leader, because Srila Prabhupada was unfailing in all his activities in trying to serve the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we have his instructions, and we have his example, and if we're following others, we judge them according to, we in comparison to Prabhupada. If they are following the same path as Prabhupada, giving the same instructions as Prabhupada, then we accept them as our leader. If they deviate, we don't have to deviate because we have a solid foundation. We're fixed in following Prabhupada and his instructions and our acharyas, and therefore we're on the safe side if we keep on fixed in their instructions and example. And we appreciate when we see others are following Prabhupada and Krishna's and our acharyas example, then we follow them also. Because they're living examples of what Prabhupada is talking about and living examples of Prabhupada's example. But when we see others are doubtful about Prabhupada and our acharyas and Krishna's example and instructions, then we respect them within our mind, but we don't follow them or associate with them very intimately.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Yes, Bhakti Laureen.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj, I accept my humble obeisances, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to you. So you were talking in this lecture about a soul being unhappy, even though in a certain circumstances, you know, it's everything that is provided for life. But in absence of Krishna, unhappiness is present. And what can I do to provide happiness from it? I have my deities here, even where I go, I have my deities. But the circumstances has prevented me to come to the temple and offer my obeisances. And I don't know if you understand my question, but it was, I won't say by coincidence, because there are no coincidences, but how should I remain happy in the absence of Krishna directly as in temple? And so I do chant, I have my deities with me, I glorify them, I glorify you, my Guru Maharaj, but I still feel unhappy.
Well, that means that we have to increase our chanting, we have to increase our care and attention to our deities, because wherever Krishna is, his holy name, wherever the deities are, Krishna is personally there. So everything
I
is there.
feel happy on the thought that I am with Krishna, but I feel unhappy because I feel so separated from him. I don't know how to explain.
That's good. We should feel separated from Krishna. That's,
you know, I would like to be somewhere that even more glorified I could give to him.
anyhow, Krishna will make those
And to
arrangements.
you, but when I am absent somewhere, I don't know, it's just something missing, and this emptiness, I know it's coming from separation and because of Maya, but I don't like it. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do because, you know, my karma states I should be where I am here because I had no influence on going or not. Or I had, but didn't have enough will to stay and do differently. Because I am still materially attached to, you know, willingness of my mother, or I don't know with whom I'm going around, and I see no purpose in going around, and there is no purpose for me giving to Krishna, and that doesn't do well for me, and I feel I'm falling down, like I'm falling down because I miss being there.
So come to the temple.
Yeah, I have to. I had operation and I was away in different countries, and the temple was far away. It was like, we should have the same opinion of Krishna. Either it's close to us or either it's far away. But I wish I was closer.
Well, keep on developing that wish and then come to the temple.
Yeah. And I have another one. I'm very sorry for your time. So I got involved in a conversation with a person that glorifies Shiva. And even though Shiva is said as a demigod, he is very convincing and very trying to compete with the thought that Shiva is God. And I am not a pushy person. All I try to explain what you said in lectures and what I have read in Srimad Bhagavatam.
Yes.
But he is still competitive, and want to compete Shiva with Krishna. But I am not a competitive person. I do not compete because I know the truth, and I won't pull into something that he doesn't want to hear. But he wants to push me to hear something that I know that is not true. What should I do?
Don't talk to such people. You're wasting your
No,
time.
right?
One of the defenses is chanting the holy name, giving
Yeah.
the holy name to the unfaithful. Find
Yeah.
someone better to talk with.
I thought so. Thank you. I just needed to make sure. Thank you for your time. Thank you for answering, Guru Maharaj.
Agnihotra, thank you. Hare Krishna. Agnihotra?
Харе Кришна, Гуру Махарадж, Бхактина Анастасия.
Okay.
Харе Кришна, Гуру Махарадж. Я хотела вам задать вопрос по поводу того, что сейчас с супругом у нас тяжелый период жизни проходит, и совсем не сахар, и поэтому хотелось, чтобы получить какую-то милость в храме, хотя бы тот же прасад, но руководящая должность женщины, у которой ко мне личная неприязнь, не позволяет мне даже прасад получить в этом храме. То есть вообще, скажите мне, пожалуйста, как мне правильно себя вести, стоит ли приходить в этот храм? Вот. Я просто не знаю. То есть за личной неприязни я не могу получить милость Господа. И как мне правильно себя вести?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, my husband and I are going through a rough time right now. It's very hard. And based on the personal dislikes, the woman who is in charge of the temple does not give us prasadam. And I cannot even approach her to ask for a prasadam for personal reasons, personal thing. So I can't receive the mercy of the Lord because of the personal. Okay, let's call it a dislike. Yeah. Okay. So she said, what can I do? What should I do? Should I even come to the temple where the person despises me so much that I can't even get prasadam?
Well, there are deities in the temple?
Да, есть.
Oh, anyhow.
Yes, there are.
So you can go there, bring the deities something to eat. You bring something, an offering to the deities, chant Hare Krishna, associate with devotees, hear about Krishna. That's also prasadam. Maharaj Ambrish, he not only offered prasad to the deities, but he also cleansed the temple. And he fixed his mind on Krishna. He smelled the incense offered to the deities. So that's also all prasadam. And don't associate with that lady who doesn't like you, because you probably won't get a very good experience if you do that. So associate with nice devotees. And go home and offer something to deity so you don't go hungry. Don't worry about whether you can take prasadam from the temple or not.
Но у меня раньше было в этом храме, она занимает... Так я ж не для себя. Мне важнее мужа, чтобы у него сознание не терялось. Ему намного тяжелее, чем мне. Он как бы очень далек еще от сознания Кришны. И это единственная просто вещь, которую я могу ему давать, сознание Кришны, потому что тогда он расслабляется и начинает что-то слушать о Кришне, как-то к нему идти. А так получается, я не переживаю за себя, что мне не
Хорошо, я
достается. Я
сейчас
не
ему
могу принять.
переведу. Хорошо.
Спасибо.
Maharaj, she said, I am not worried about me getting the prasadam. I'm requesting this prasadam so I can bring it to my husband, whose Krishna consciousness is just budding. When he gets the prasadam, he relaxes and he is willing to hear about Krishna. But when he doesn't get the prasadam, he really kind of gets agitated. So that's why I'm so worried that I cannot get mercy of Krishna.
We'll get one of your friends to get the prasadam for you. Do you have any friends in the temple? Drujami? У вас есть друзьями?
Друзей нет. Всех разогнали, всех друзей. Она своим поведением всех разогнала и делает все
Unfortunately,
так, что
with her behavior,
невозможно.
she has got rid of all her friends also.
Okay, well, pay someone to get some prasadam for you. You can pay someone to go and get some prasadam and make your husband happy. Okay. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.